Good evening. Recently I've been on a kick for video games that have a heavy emphasis on movement. This kick has led me to revisit a classic, that being Mirror's Edge. Released in 2008, Mirror's Edge is a fantastic parkour game with a phenomenal art style and soundtrack, and is a game that has aged fairly well. And speaking of aging, the game turns 17 this November, so to celebrate, I wanted to take a look back at what made Mirror's Edge so special in the first place, and to further understand why Mirror's Edge is mostly a masterpiece. To begin, we have to take a look back at why Mirror's Edge was so unique at the time. Parkour was relatively a new phenomenon during the late 2000s, and there weren't many games that solely focused on it. Yes, there were titles like the original Assassin's Creed and Prince of Persia games that featured parkour, but parkour wasn't the main feature, as those games had a heavy emphasis on combat and exploration as well. Mirror's Edge, however, had parkour as its central mechanic, and what a mechanic it was. The parkour in Mirror's Edge is fantastic, despite it actually being quite basic when you break it down. In the game, you can jump, slide, climb, wall run, roll, and do a 180 spin to quickly turn around. You can also tuck your legs in when jumping over barbed wire fences. While this might seem bare bones and basic compared to newer titles, the true beauty in the system is how the player is able to chain these moves together to get across the world in a seamless flow state. For instance, when the mechanics click and everything comes together, the player feels fast and fluid, and you truly do feel like you're a parkour master. A major part of this fluidity is the level design and layout of the areas you traverse. In each level there are poles to climb, walls to run on, boxes to spring off of, and pads to land on, and many more obstacles to play with. Furthermore, all these obstacles are placed in a way to keep the player moving forward, and if the player knows what they are doing, they are able to get through these obstacles with ease. For example, the game might suggest a more direct route with runner vision. However, if you know how to get around these obstacles and know how to use your parkour abilities, you can do these routes without having to do this adjusted way, and even go through these routes a lot quicker. It all just takes time, and it does take a little bit of time to get used to, learning the maps and the levels, but once you do learn the levels, it makes running through these levels very easy and just so satisfying. Like, the parkour in this game is very satisfying, and it's got to be one of the greatest movement systems in any other video game that I've ever played. The level design here is simply superb, and each level is varied in a way that makes sense, and everything just flows so naturally level to level. Like, one level you'll start on rooftops, the next level you'll go down to a mall, and then the next level you'll be in a sewer. It all just has a good flow to it, and everything makes sense, and it is just a great level design. To put it simply, the levels of Mirror's Edge feel like a jungle gym in the best way possible, and they are a complete joy to play around in. And while these levels are short, as the game is only about 4 hours long, they are vastly replayable, as learning new and quicker routes throughout them will keep speedrunners coming back and again. Additionally, there are collectible packages the player can find if they look hard enough, which in turn adds to the replayability factor. Reason being that these packages are often hidden in very hard to find locations that often take a lot of skill to even reach these locations, and a starting player honestly won't have these abilities or know how to do that. You're gonna have to play this game a couple of times if you want to fully master the mechanics and to find all of the packages without a guide, because these things can be hidden in pretty hard to reach places and are really easy to miss. All in all, the parkour mechanics and the level design are one in the same and truly click with each other in this game, and it just feels like such a smooth and buttery experience that you don't really get very often with many games, and Mirror's Edge was just really unique for its time, as a lot of games just didn't seem to focus on parkour or movement, as a lot of games had movement as the afterthought. Now that we've taken a look at the parkour side of Mirror's Edge, we might as well take a look at what else made Mirror's Edge a masterpiece, that being the art style and music. The art style of Mirror's Edge is phenomenal, as its heavy use of primary colors and stark contrast really set it apart from the gray and brown shooters at the time. For example, titles like Call of Duty and Battlefield and Gears of War were very gray in nature, and while it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, they just lacked the same amount of color and just different contrast that Mirror's Edge has. Mirror's Edge is just a very starkly contrasted game, and the colors really do pop, and it's just very iconic and memorable. Like, each color in this game serves a purpose, and it's just really pretty to look at as well. Furthermore, the game gives off heavy Frutiger Arrow vibes to give it a truly unique look. look. The art style is not just for looks, however, as it serves another purpose of guiding the player to their next objective. This is primarily done through the use of red with runner vision, where important items needed to progress, like a valve you need to turn, a pipe you need to crawl up, or a door you need to slam through, or even red boxes that you need to jump on, or even pads to land on, are all painted red. This smartly designed mechanic is a way to keep the player on the right track without overloading the screen with map markers or other intrusive guideposts. For instance, if you take a look back at a lot of video games back then and even today, there are tons of map markers all over the place, just absolutely littering the screen. And anyways, it just looks really nice and fits the aesthetic perfectly. All in all, Mirror's Edge would not be as memorable without its art style. The music, on the other hand, is also quite memorable, as the main theme alone has stuck in my head for quite some time. The electronic soundtrack by Swedish composer Solarfields fits this game perfectly, and each track goes along with each moment in a memorable fashion. The chase music is frantic, the slow music is mesmerizing, and once again the main theme is a banger, especially when the vocals come in near the end of the game. In short, the soundtrack for Mirror's Edge slaps and does a lot of the heavy lifting during gameplay. Also, I would highly recommend listening to the soundtrack on your own time, as a lot of the songs here are really good and deserve your time, and they make really good music to use when making YouTube videos, as I've used most of the soundtrack for this video already. Now that I'm done gushing about the quality of Mirror's Edge, you're probably wondering why this video is titled Mostly a Masterpiece instead of just a masterpiece. This is because, like all video games, Mirror's Edge is not perfect, and it has a couple of flaws that kind of get in the way of an otherwise perfect game, and I want to kind of take a look at those as well, just to be fair. For one, the combat is clunky and can sometimes slow things to a crawl, especially when weapons are involved. Gunplay had to have been a later addition or something, because it goes against the core theme of going fast, as the player has to stop everything to slowly pick off enemies one by one via stiff shootouts. It just really kills the pacing, and a lot of the time you can't simply skip these encounters since the enemies will most likely kill you. For example, there's a lot of areas where you cannot get past the enemies because there's something in your way, and when you try to turn the crank or a lever, you will just get shot and killed. Granted, you don't have to use guns, and there is even an achievement for doing so. It is still highly beneficial for the player in order to progress. For example, there's a section in this game containing heavy snipers, and you have to, dodge and weave sniper fire, and you do find, a sniper to use, and it's better off just taking these guys out, because if you just let them sit around and shoot at you, it really slows things down, and it's harder to run while you're getting shot at. Like, when you get shot, your momentum slows to a crawl, and it's just a very unsatisfying feeling. The melee combat, however, is fine. It can be kind of clunky from time to time, as some of your punches don't really land with the amount of emphasis you'd think they would, and one of the later boss fights in the game is honestly downright terrible. You have to fight this agent who, can copy your moves, but it's very, oddly telegraphed and doesn't make a whole lot of sense until you play it a lot, and it's just not a very good boss fight. This boss fight would have been a lot better if it was more of like a chase scene instead of just a straight up hand-to-hand combat scenario, because like I said previously, the hand-to-hand combat in Mirror's Edge is just okay. It's really not that spectacular in any way. It's pretty basic and it's just kind of clunky. On the story side of things, the game does an alright job of setting up a dystopian world and telling a decent story to boot. It's not groundbreaking, as the short nature of the campaign doesn't really let you get close with the characters. The characters aren't bad per se, as Faith, Merc, and Celeste all have memorable lines of dialogue and their voice actors all do a fantastic job. It just feels like the story is sort of an afterthought. Because let's be real here, most people didn't play Mirror's Edge for the story. They mainly played the game for the parkour mechanics and the aesthetic. It's not a bad story or anything, it's just not the focus. To wrap this section up, the combat in Mirror's Edge, in my opinion, gets in the way of an otherwise fantastic game, and the story is just fine. Despite these flaws, however, Mirror's Edge, in my opinion, is still a great game overall, as there aren't many games like it. From its core gameplay mechanics to its unique art style and music, Mirror's Edge definitely deserves to be played at least once. However, I doubt you will play it once because it's so replayable and you're going to spend a lot of your time just trying to master the routes featured in this game. To conclude, Mirror's Edge is mostly a masterpiece and is deserving of your time. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry if it was a bit on the shorter side of things, as I'm still trying to figure out this video essay thing, so I hope you can understand. All in all, this was a fun video to make and has been a video I've been wanting to make for a while. So if you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe, as we are trying to hit our goal of 500 subscribers. Thanks again for watching. This has been Mavo1111, and I will see you on the flip side.